Welcome into another edition of the Hang Time Podcast. It's Sekou Smith here in Atlanta. My main man, John Schumann, is in New Jersey, and John Hartzell's behind the glass as always. Latest NBA power rankings dropped on Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Had a huge 11-game slate for you. Interesting games throughout the day. Interesting situations in all the games. Very curious stuff going on. We'll get to that a little bit later in the show. But first of all, we have some delayed breaking news here on the podcast. Carmelo Anthony is on the move once again. He's reportedly being traded to the Chicago Bulls today by the Houston Rockets. I know a lot of people didn't even realize he was still the Rockets to trade away. You know, he's kind of been gone so long. Shu, does Melo have anything left in the tank to help the Bulls, and should we care?
From what I read, the reports are that he's not going to play with the Bulls, that it's just a matter of them waiving him or trading him at some point between now and February 7th.
And where's he? I mean, we know where we think the destination is.
If there was another team interested in him, wouldn't they have him by now? Or like they could have traded for him. Or if they didn't want to trade for him, they wanted him to be waived, then okay, his agent could go now to the Bulls. Hey, please just waive him now. He's got a deal. Like Kenneth Faried, the Rockets needed Kenneth Faried, and apparently the Nets were like, all right, whatever. And they waived him, right? And now Kenneth Faried is now playing for the Rockets. Like, why can't that just happen with Carmelo Anthony if there's actually a team out there interested in Carmelo Anthony and wanting him?
Let's put our conspiracy theorist hats on here, Shu. If the team that needs him doesn't need him right now and maybe needs for him to come to them a certain way on the buyout market, maybe. But shouldn't they let him go through this process so they can get him the way that best allows them to move forward in terms of what their master plan is?
If they're planning on signing him after a buyout, they either have to have a roster space open or they have to clear a roster space. So they could trade for him also. He's on a minimum contract. Like, there's nothing you can trade for him and send the rights to, some European 40-year-old European guy that's never going to come to the NBA. There's no.
Is that what Melo's been relegated to now?
No, I'm just saying, if there's interested teams, then why hasn't it happened yet? I'm fascinated by the whole thing. Like, I would love to see him, I don't want to see him go out like this. But
no, neither do I. I'd like to see him get a one-game stint in the Bulls jersey, kind of like Rasheed Wallace did when he played for the Hawks for one game and, got 20 and 10 or whatever.
And then go on to win a championship later that year.
Hey, do what you got to do, Melo. I'm rooting for Melo, however this ends. But, man, there's some people, like, when the news broke that that he was going to get moved, it was kind of like, man, some venom for a guy what did Melo do to everybody? What did he do to foster such foul reactions from people about him, whenever something goes down?
Well, it's one thing to maybe not like or not want your team to acquire him because you think that he's going to maybe disrupt a good thing. Mm-hmm. It's another thing to just sort of trash him at every opportunity. That's a different thing. Like, if you're a Lakers fan and say the Lakers traded for him, I could see you say, I think, I'd rather give that playing time to, player X instead of player Y or instead of Carmelo. But there's no need to weigh in on every little thing that happens with him and just think that he doesn't deserve another chance.
Yeah, I don't know why there's such bad feelings about Melo in so many places. I guess I understand in New York or Oklahoma City, if you felt like Melo was there and you didn't get what you want, but man, anyway, what do you do to the rest of the league? It's like, people are personally offended when his name is mentioned with their team. It's like, man, he's not the worst dude you could have on your roster, is he?
It's a good question. No, I don't think so.
Yeah, come on.
I'll take him over Jabari Parker.
Oh boy, you're brutal. You
that's
just had to go there.
That's my. I just thought of somebody that I'd rather have than this guy, and I'll say it's Jabari Parker.
Well, we know we'll be getting an invite to the Parker family reunion this summer. John Schumann. Since we last talked, Shu, Boogie has played a couple games for the Golden State Warriors. Had about the impact I thought he would. I wasn't expecting fireworks or for him to come out and get 30 or do anything crazy, but physically, I've liked the way he looks. He doesn't look like he's laboring at all, after that Achilles injury and recovery. Should there be expectations at this point for what we get out of Boogie with this Warriors team right now? Or I think the best thing he's done, Shu, is he hasn't disrupted the flow. I mean, Clay, cooked, 44 yesterday, 10 straight threes before he missed one, went 10 of 11. I mean, they blew the Lakers out at Staples. What's been your instant impressions of Boogie?
Pleasantly surprised. Like you said, I don't think he's been laboring. He's run the floor pretty well. Like I remember in the first game against the Clippers, he had a fast break dunk. Mm-hmm. I didn't see much of the action last night, but I see that the Warriors starting lineup with their 5 All-Stars is now a plus 35 in only 18 minutes. They've outscored their opponents 55-20.
Good grief.
And what's interesting is they've had 22 assists on their 23 buckets in those minutes. So that lineup has basically assisted on every bucket. So it's not, we're not, hey, get the ball to Boogie and let him disrupt the flow or anything like that. So that's, I don't think he could ask for the first 2 games to have gone any better.
Yeah. Can I go ahead and say, by the way, as well, I love the Warriors' ability to manufacture drama late in the game. On the bench, they have Steve Kerr getting into it with Jordan Bell, like something totally inconsequential on any other team. The coach getting into a dust-up with a guy who's essentially out of the rotation. But the Warriors are such a must-see reality NBA TV that, people are talking this morning. I saw on social media, it's started this fire, Jordan Bell and Steve Kerr. Who cares? Like, literally, who cares if Steve Kerr is getting lit back from Jordan Bell? This dude may or may not see the light of day the rest of the season in terms of rotation. Who knows? I guess there could be some hand-wringing about him not progressing the way you wanted him to, I guess, in his second season. But are the Warriors that big of a show that even a bit player like Jordan Bell gets headlines for something like this?
I guess so. I saw it. I thought it was a little bit interesting. But, yeah, because it's Jordan Bell, it's less interesting than if it were – somebody else. But yeah, I agree though that he has been a little bit of a disappointment in his second season. Like, we thought that he was going to be getting a bulk of the minutes alongside the other 4 All-Stars until Cousins returned, and that just didn't happen. Where it was, it was Kevon Looney that really took
James before Looney or Jones, Damian Jones before he got hurt, and then Looney.
Yeah, right. Like, so basically he was third out of the 3 on that sort of depth chart of the fifth guy. And so right. I think that's a little bit disappointing for him. And he's still now, obviously, even with Jones out for the season, still scratching for minutes.
That might be part of his frustration as well. Who knows? Just interesting that the Warriors always find a way to make headlines, even when everything else should be harmonious.
8-game winning streak right now ties them for the longest of the season. So.
I know. There were other highlights on a huge day of games, and I thought that TNT, especially the games were on NBA TV, TNT, all over the place, but I thought they especially did a great job highlighting the importance of the day, and I think they always do a really good job of that. So that's always a highlight for me, and I went to State Farm Arena and watched a little bit of the Hawks and Orlando Magic game, and they had a choir singing during the introductions for the Hawks. It was pretty cool. And Adam Silver, commissioner, was in the building as well here in Atlanta yesterday for Martin Luther King Day. So pretty big, monster slate all around. I enjoyed watching Joel Embiid and the Sixers agitate and pummel James Harden and the Houston Rockets. Embiid has quickly become my favorite troll in all of sports. I mean, he had a chase down block on Harden that was pretty sweet, and then got up in Harden's face. They had their own little dust up earlier. I mean, Embiid always seems like he's into it with somebody. I don't know if he's doing that just because that's who he is, and if that's the case, that's beautiful. If it's genuine, then I love a 7-foot, 270-pound troll.
Because what are you gonna do?
Because exactly, like who's gonna knock him down? For being like that, but. Is he quickly becoming the big man that we've all been wishing was around, like the big bully, multi-skilled? He can shoot it from outside. He can play inside. He can run the floor. Has he morphed into the kind of big man we thought maybe wouldn't exist much longer in this league?
He's really been that from day one since he got over those first 2 years of injuries and started playing. Even that rookie year where he played 31 games. I mean, those 31 games were really, really freaking good. it's continued that way. I mean, the guy is a two-way monster. I mean, he's a Defensive Player of the Year candidate and obviously puts up huge numbers on offense. And I think the Sixers are starting to look pretty good right now. I think they've won 8 of their last 11. They lost that nail biter to Oklahoma City on Saturday, but their last 3 wins are by 42 points over Minnesota, by 24 points at Indiana, and by 28 over the Rockets. So they're looking good. Ben Simmons has been terrific. Still not shooting, but and I think his inability to shoot played a part in them not being able to get a good shot off on that last play against Oklahoma City. But hey, if they take care of business as well as they have been and start beating teams by 20 and 30 points, his inability to shoot doesn't really matter.
And I was watching Ben Simmons. He doesn't get credit for it, but he's a really good teammate on the floor when you think about how unselfish he is. I know he gets knocked for it. Sometimes people kill him for not taking that shot the other night and giving the ball to Jimmy Butler and allowing him to take that last second shot. I like the idea that he's as unselfish as he is, and maybe it's born out of the fact that he's not a great shooter and that he's going to pass up some opportunities that a guy in his position would normally take. But, man, it would be hard to deprogram a guy from the other direction. So the idea that you got to encourage him and build him up and make him be a guy who takes some of those shots you want him to take is refreshing to me. It's not like we're having to scream and, holler for this guy not to gun all the time. In a league where, let's be serious, we got Reggie Jacksons of the world out there running around taking shots that we wish they would facilitate for others. I like that about Simmons' game. I think I know it's a negative to some people. I think it's actually a positive part of his game.
Yeah, I think there's a Jason Kidd element to him, just Jason Kidd in a bigger body almost, where he's a terror on the break, obviously, just like Kidd was, unselfish, and I don't think he's as brilliant as a passer as Kidd was and just seeing passes that nobody else sees, but he's not bad in that regard. And then a stout defender. I mean, Kidd was a tough defender, a guy who was big and strong and sort of can guard guys a couple inches bigger than him. Simmons doesn't have to worry about that aspect. I mean, he's 6'8" and just huge and can be a really, really good defender. And that's one reason why I had him in my all-star starters, which we'll get to later in the show. Really?
Okay. So how big is Simmons? I can't think the last time I was, standing right next to him or near him. I mean, he's tall. He's 6'9" and a half, 6'10", right?
Is that right? Is it? Yeah, I guess
because he's bigger than LeBron.
Yeah, that's true.
Last time I remember, he's taller than LeBron.
Is he listed at 6'10"? It's possible. Yeah, he's listed at 6'10". So
okay, yeah.
It's just such an advantage to have that dude as your point guard. I mean, because JJ Redick is 6'4", right? So if a team has two guards that are, 6'3" and 6'6", the small guy can defend Redick, but still, so you're going to have somebody on your team defending Ben Simmons. And that means staying in front of him on the break, but that also means muscling with him, when he does his duck-ins and post-up in the half-court offense as well. I mean, he's a big dude, and that's not easy to match up with defensively.
Yeah. You mentioned our all-star starters. We'll get to those briefly. But let me touch on Week 15 power rankings. I got a chance to digest those while I was watching games yesterday. Top 5 are the Bucks, the Warriors, Raptors, Nuggets, and Spurs on NBA.com, as they are every Monday, authored by John Schumann. I like the top 5. I got no issue with whatsoever. And I know you always have quality, detailed explanations for why teams are where. So please check those out on NBA.com. But I like the team of the week, Brooklyn Nets, 4-game win streak, beat some pretty good teams, a couple of decent teams in the mix here, obviously, in the Celtics and the Rockets.
And then came back and beat the Kings on Monday.
Yeah, but D'Angelo Russell, what the world?
He's making shots. I mean, we've talked about him before. He can't get to the basket and he doesn't get to the free throw line. So I haven't looked. I haven't checked yesterday's. I think he had 30-something yesterday.
Yeah.
But against the Celtics and Magic, he had 74 points total. Only 5 of those 74 came in the restricted area with 2 layups or on free throws. He made 1 free throw. So 74 points in 2 games with only 5 of them coming on layups or free throws. So his inability to get to the line and get to the basket makes it, I think, tougher for him, right? To be consistent, to be efficient, really.
Yeah, because you're always shooting.
Yeah, he's shooting jumpers all the time.
Dribble,
I mean, he's shooting jumpers, but man, he's shooting really well. I think the Nets have done a good job of having him cut down on his mid range, and so his sort of 3-point attempt to mid range attempt ratio has climbed quite a bit, and he just seems more comfortable from three. Like he's got that sort of casual way to him, but he's just really comfortable from three, where it just feels like he's just shooting a 15-footer, and so he's making shots, and that's been huge for them. The one thing that's been the difference for them really in them turning their season around is how well they've played in close games. They started the season 8 and 18, and they were 4-12 in games that were within 5 in the last 5. Right now, they've won 17 of 22, so they're 17-5, and in that stretch, they're 10-2 in games that were within 5 in the last 5. They had that huge comeback against Orlando, and before that, they had that comeback against the Rockets, where they came back from 11 down with less than 4 minutes to go. So, it's a skill. Finishing close games is a skill. Part of that is luck. Sometimes the ball is going to bounce your way, and sometimes it isn't. But their ability to close games is a skill. And I think back to Russell, I think his ability to sort of bounce back, like again in that Houston game, he did not play well. I think he was like a minus 21 in a game that went to overtime. So that tells you, that his minutes were not very good. But then he comes back and bounces back and has another game, a great game in the next game. So that's a sign of maturity. I think probably that wasn't there in his Lakers days. His ability to know that, hey, I didn't have it this one night. And like I said, the consistency is going to be an issue for him just the way because of his inability to get to the line into the basket. But his ability to sort of bounce back from a game where he didn't have it and where Spencer Dinwiddie was on the floor and he wasn't down the stretch of close game of a close game, and then come back the next night and still have a terrific performance. Like I say, is a sign of maturity and that this dude gets it.
Are the Nets legit? I mean, are they? They're in the 6th spot now in the Eastern Conference standings. Is this real? Like, is this a playoff team and a team with the potential to put a little fear in somebody if they get a chance to in the first round of playoffs?
Well, on the one hand, like I said, there's a little bit of luck in this run is about like that 10-2 record in close games, like being able to win some close games. So there's a little bit of luck there, and still there are still only 2 games over 500. So you are what your record is, and there's still only 2 games over 500. They have a brutal end to the schedule, so there's no guarantee that they're going to remain over 500. At the same time, they're missing their best player. I still think Karis LeVert is their best player when he's healthy.
Yes.
And they're beating some good teams, and so I would. I mean, I don't know if any of those top 5 teams is that scared of them. The worst team, like just thinking about it, like Indiana is our, biggest question mark among that top 5. And Indiana's, I think, killed the Nets in every time they've played. So, I don't know if any of those teams are that scared of, but like, I think it's just a huge, the same thing with the Kings. It's just like a huge step forward for them this year. And we shouldn't worry about them as, oh, what are they going to do in the playoffs? Let's just say, hey, look at where this team was a couple of years ago with a lack of talent and a lack of picks, and see how how far they've come. Same thing with the Kings. The Kings probably aren't going to make the playoffs, but the fact that they took a step forward, a real significant step forward after 13 years of just consistently terrible basketball, makes this season an important one for them.
Yeah, I like it. I like the progress we've seen from both those teams. Now, when you mentioned the Kings as well. You've talked in recent weeks about the Jazz having an opportunity shoe to get things turned around. Had a tough loss to the Blazers, yesterday, but still in a prime position to continue piling up some wins. They got a tough one Wednesday night against the Denver Nuggets, but then they got a back-to-back home and away series with the Timberwolves. Donovan Mitchell has looked really good to me. I've gotten emails from people complaining about Rudy Gobert not being on the MVP ladder. I'll take those with a grain of salt. But are they still in the position that you think they are in to make that move in the West?
Oh yeah, I mean they still have a favorable schedule going forward. They still have more home games than road games going forward, and so I think they're there. Obviously, the health of their guards is important. I don't think Ricky Rubio played last night, did he? I apologize for not being up on everything that happened.
You didn't watch the Jazz Blazers game?
Like I said, it was a Monday. I love the fact that there were 11 games with 10 different starting times. I mean, that was fantastic. But because it was a Monday, Power Rankings Monday, I made it only till like 7 o'clock at night here on the Eastern. So I'm checking the thing. So, yeah, Rubio did not play. So they've played 6 games now, I think, without a point guard, basically. No, Rubio did play. He came off the bench, sorry. And Mitchell has stepped up. He's been terrific. Yeah. In those minutes, I assume Rubio will come back and start, later this week. And the minutes with Mitchell and Royce O'Neal as their sort of second guard have been really good prior to last night. So yeah, I think they're in position, and that's a good win for the Blazers, by the way, because the Jazz had crushed them in both of their previous 2 meetings this season. So and they play again next week, I believe next Wednesday. So that's an important win for the Blazers, just to beat that team in particular on the road is good for them. But I still believe in the Jazz's ability to move up in the West to maybe a 5, 6, 7 situation, maybe even the top 4, just because of their schedule and obviously their defense. I expect to be number 1 or number 2 by the time we get to the All-Star break.
Yeah, that would be vindication for a lot of people who had them as their team on the rise this season if they were able to finish in the top 4 in the West, by the end of the season. So very interesting, just the ebb and flow of seasons, around the league, man. Some teams are cooking right now. Others, and I don't want to talk about them, but the Lakers, man, you talk about it's the longest stretch of games LeBron has ever missed due to injury in his career, obviously, or at all. But it's taken a huge toll on that Lakers team. The group they trotted out against the Warriors last night, and Lord knows I love Mo Wagner, and, they got some other guys who are developmental players, and fringe players who are trying to make a name for themselves in what's a really strange season when you think about it overall for the Lakers, knowing that this roster is probably going to look largely different in the future compared to what it looks like now. But it just reinforces the notion that, man, to survive in this league without your stars, without your best players is a beast. I mean, literally a beast. Lonzo Ball, now he's out with 4 to 6 weeks with this sprained ankle. And I watched the play where he sprained the ankle the other day, and it was, it didn't look like it would be that big of an injury to me for some reason. I don't know why. But it's just, it's just a reminder of how difficult it is to win at a high level in this league without your main pieces. So the Lakers are, as far as teams to keep an eye on, for me, they got to get LeBron and certainly Rondo back before we can take full, measure of them. But they don't have a whole lot of time to play around. They got to –
every game counts.
Yeah, they got to get to it.
I mean, they've been kind of mercurial, without these last few games. I mean, they've had some really good performances and other one. I mean, obviously losing Ball hurts just to the fact of, how important he is to their transition offense.
Sure.
And how important their transition offense is to them, to their offense as a whole. But yeah, I mean, Zubac has looked really good. He's just a big who can catch and finish. But yeah, and Kuzma's had his ups and downs. Ingram has had his ups and downs, and so it's all about health. And I mean, that was basically my lead to power rankings, just because as Cousins comes back, the Pelicans lose Anthony Davis, the Rockets lose Clint Capella, the Lakers lose Lonzo Ball, and even the Bulls aren't. Wins and losses don't matter to them, but losing Wendell Carter Jr. for, I think it's like 8 to 12 weeks or something like that stinks, just because, they have that young core and the more minutes those guys get together, the better. And, they've only played like 100-something minutes with Chris Dunn and Levine and Lowry Markkanen and Carter on the floor together. And, obviously for a rookie big man for which, the feel of the game is so important. For him to lose 2 months of his rookie season is a tough blow.
Yeah. Like I said, sometimes in this league, you are what your stars dictate you are. And speaking of those stars, the All-Star starters will be announced Thursday night on TNT. Voting is closed. I'm sure you got your ballot in on time, as I did the same. So now's as good a time as any, Shu, to get a head start on it. Who'd you have on your starting five for the Eastern Conference All-Stars?
Well, we've talked about the Eastern Conference front court was very easy. Giannis Antetokounmpo, Kawhi Leonard, Joel Embiid.
Mm-hmm.
And then the backcourt for me was Kyrie Irving, and then it came down to a decision between Bradley Beal and Ben Simmons. And I went to Simmons for a couple of reasons. Team success, one, rebounding and passing, getting in there, and defense, just getting in there. I mean, I think he's just the overall all-around player. Although I was tempted for a little bit to go with Beal, just with how terrific he's been. Obviously, a higher usage player than Simmons is.
With no John Wall around, he's been on a tear.
Right. So I went with Beal I went Simmons over Beal. And the good thing about, doing the votes for the starters is you don't really have to worry about snubbing somebody because they're going to be a reserve anyway, really.
Yeah.
So that was my Eastern Conference 5.
I had the same group except for that other guard spot you're talking about. I had Kyrie. I actually had Kemba Walker as my other guard. And I know people go Kemba, but when you think about the entire first half, Kemba was great. Like when Beal was trying to figure it out, in Washington they were having issues, Kemba was cooking. Now he had a stretch where he struggled as well, but I always factor in how much of the load is on your shoulders on your particular team. And to me, Kemba carries as much of a load as any single player in the East in terms of his responsibility for his team winning and playing well. Maybe I felt a little sentimental and gave him the hometown nod since the game's in Charlotte, but maybe not. I mean, like you said, it's not as if somebody's getting snubbed. I think we all can agree that Bradley Beal, Ben Simmons, and Kemba all should be on the East, the list for All-Stars in Eastern Conference. So that shouldn't be an issue.
Yeah, I don't hate the Kemba Walker pick at all.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't feel like any particular guy would have gotten snubbed by not getting on there. Who did you have on your Western Conference side?
So West's guards were easy, Stephen Curry and James Harden. And then the front court, I didn't have like one obvious one. I basically had a group of 4 guys that I was picking 3 from. Mm-hmm. And the group of 4 was Anthony Davis, Kevin Durant, Paul George, and Nikola Jokic was my sort of 4 that it came down to. Mm-hmm. And of the 4, I left off Anthony Davis, which was weird to me, but I just went with Durant, Paul George, Nikola Jokic as my front court. Mm-hmm. And I don't have much of an explanation why I left off Davis. I guess team success really was probably the determining factor with the 4 guys, and Davis is the one on the worst team,
right,
putting up huge numbers, but not necessarily lifting his team up.
Did LeBron's absence kind of wipe him off the list?
Yeah, I just
all the games missed.
All the games missed. Just obviously he's there. He was on my mind as I started the process. But I quickly, just had him at the bottom of the list because of the games missed. I just sort of sort them at first by total production. And because of the games missed, his sort of total production number fell a little bit. And then I just went with, based my decision on those 4 guys that I named.
Right. I think Paul George to me is my favorite kind of not surprise pick, but favorite guy to rise into that level. When you consider where he's been in his career, what he's dealt with with the injury a few years ago, obviously, but now being back where I know we were joking with Eric Horn on Twitter about it the other day when he hit that big shot, but it's just fun to watch him play. Like you see a guy who's mastered his game. You know what I'm saying? Like he's so measured in how he plays. I don't ever feel like he's trying to do too much or, chasing numbers or anything like that. It's just a smooth, efficient way to play, especially when you got a ball-dominant guy like Russell Westbrook to play with. He doesn't seem to have any of the issues, the give and take, or the sharing issues that it seemed like Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook had.
His handle has gotten so much better.
Yes.
Since his Indiana days, I feel like.
Yes.
I mean there was a couple. There was that one step back that he had against Philly late in the game. It wasn't the game winner.
No, but it was just
where it was just the smoothest little crossover and step back that I had seen in a long time, and I was like, oh, okay, and yeah, he's been terrific, and obviously an impact defender as well, and that gives him plus points in my mind.
They're my danger zone team in the West this year, by the way. Everybody wonders what team in the West could be a problem come playoff time, and I got it bad. I'm always looking ahead, thinking about the playoffs, thinking about matchups. They are officially my danger zone team for the playoffs. I just want to get that on record.
So who are your other two Western Conference front?
I did not dismiss Anthony Davis because of his team's brutal lack of success. He's so good, Shu.
He is. I mean, really is.
And for all-star purposes, I didn't think, like, if it was all-NBA, some people I know take a different approach. They say, well, all-NBA should be about best players, not necessarily about who's winning and who's not. But I don't feel good leaving Anthony Davis out of the mix because of his team's lack of success or because of the fact that the Pelicans aren't as good as we think they should be. Because he certainly does everything that's asked of him. It's not – I'm not putting it on his shoulders. I didn't put Jokic on there, and I know people will probably be upset about that, but I couldn't put him in that mix, Shu, knowing that he's their most important player, no question, in Denver. There's no doubt about that.
And Denver's in second place in the Western Conference.
I know. But right. There are a bunch of nights when I'm looking at the Nuggets, and he doesn't jump out at me as their best player all the time. And I know that's not fair to him.
I think he's doing. There is definitely. I have definitely been frustrated by his lack of aggressiveness in the past.
Yeah.
But I think that has become far less of a problem over the last, I want to say, 2 or 3 months. Remember there was that stretch of games where he had like like 3 or 4 shots at the most.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's happened in a long time. And I mean, he's just so good and so important to what is the second best team in the West. And I couldn't keep him off. But,
yeah, I'll tell you where the real interesting dilemmas in the West are gonna occur is what do you do with Klay Thompson and Karl Anthony Towns? And
you don't have to worry about it. That's the coach's job.
I know, that's what I'm saying. But what do you do if, when it comes time to decide between some of those guys?
We could talk about it next week.
That'll be interesting. Yeah, we'll talk about that next week.
Make our reserve picks if you want next week. But I like not having any real consequences to picking All-Star.
It's very, very good point.
So you had let's see. So you had George, Anthony Davis, and Durant.
Yes.
Okay, so you left off LeBron and Jokic then.
Yes, but I couldn't leave Durant off. He's been playing great. No way I could have left him off. And AD was just hard to pass up. When you consider the magnitude of his game, I couldn't do it.
It's fine.
And like you said, it doesn't matter. We vote. It's only a small piece of the larger picture. LeBron's going to end up with the most votes anyway.
Correct.
So absence or not, he's going to be on there, and he'll probably be picking. So that'll be the way it goes. Should be interesting though. We'll see Thursday on TNT when the starters are announced. Make sure you check it out on NBA.com as well. We'll have that for you. Excuse me, Shu, my voice is shot. I think it comes from all the yelling and screaming I was doing over the weekend, laughing at some of our mutual friends who root for this New Orleans Saints.
Oh, no.
And watching the agony and then cheering as my boy Tom Brady is making it back to another Super Bowl. Yeah, dude, he took the mega bus. He took a ride on the mega bus to and from New Orleans for the game. So you better believe I was giving him the business.
Poor Arthur.
We'll be back on Thursday with another episode here at the Hang Time Podcast with a deep dive into another team from around the league. We won't tell you what team that is. You got to tune in to check it out. Be sure to subscribe to Hang Time on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts for new episodes all season long. Don't forget to leave a review, please. And for John Schumann, our producer John Hartzell, Sekou Smith, we'll see you right here next time on the Hang Time Podcast. Hang Time Podcast.